forward to a really cool stream tonight. There's a couple things I want to talk about, which I think might really enlighten some things. I found through my journey with the tarot over the years that as much as I thought I knew, I was always in a state of learning. And there were often times as well with individuals where I would find some correlation or have some thought and share it. And I was surprised to find that there were circumstances where there were people who had studied the tarot for a very long time that hadn't had those thoughts or bumped into those ideas. And I have certainly had that experience many times where I've heard something from someone that I hadn't heard or hadn't thought of or read. And in some cases, we're very lucky that can change us. It can actually alter our understanding of the whole system, and kind of put us in this state of like a renewed access. And so I thought maybe there's a couple of things that I would share that I found is not necessarily common knowledge, with the intent of hopefully opening up some ideas to people that are using this language for whether it's divinatory purposes individually or with other people and helping provide insight to others. And there's also the other side of this system, which is the idea of basically accessing archetypal knowledge and applying it to your own understanding of creation. You know, like we hear a lot of different descriptions of the tarot, some of them very esoteric and some of them more general, but when you get at the core of the story it's trying to tell, it's nothing short of the creation of the universe, and also of yourself. It's your story. And that I don't mean that in a symbolic or metaphoric way. I mean that in a literal, scientific, empirical sense, right? And so, like, how are we going to have a conversation about empiricism and science when we're talking about esotericism and metaphysics? Like, how do we resolve those two things? Well, that has always been my drive in my study of this knowledge. It's always been to bring it to a point that I can understand, where I am able to not necessarily demystify, but more appropriately to show this knowledge in a way that it is it's provable scientifically, right? Like, what's the point of having a body of knowledge that is pure conjecture? You know, if that's the case, then you run into the pitfalls of religion, where you know, you can have this experiential access, but it requires faith only, right? Like, there's no other thing to grab onto, and there's value in that as well, no doubt, of course. But what my goal has always been is to say, like, for instance, answer questions like, why 360 degrees in a circle? Is that an arbitrary number, or why did we pick that? Does that, and that matters to me, because that is the foundation of the whole of the mathematics of a lot of what we do in the tarot. Or why are there, for instance, 22 majors in the major arcana, right? And so some of the topics we're going to be talking about tonight are related to that. Why 22? And I think that you're going to be very surprised if you haven't come across this information before, that the tarot is not just some arbitrary body of symbols that have evolved into a language used for divinatory purposes. It's actually much, much deeper than that. And what it is a pictorial representation of your creation and the creation of all matter in the universe. And I'm going to prove that tonight. So that said, and it's empirically, scientifically evident. Like, you won't even need to do any further research. You will be presented with the information, and any functional mind will see it and recognize it as truth. Okay, so that's my claim. So that the tarot is more than just an arbitrary system. It is absolutely tied to the fabric of reality. So, and that's what we're going to talk about why 22 majors. With respect to the karmic silhouette, that's obviously the readings that we do with respect to the period of time that we're in right now using the decadent. If you're familiar with my channel, I use that technique very often for doing free readings and that type of thing. And also getting to the heart of where we are, where we're moving to, where we've come from, and how best to navigate that. And on an individual level, what we do is we take the card of your birth and associate it with the period of time, and then that gives us that sort of personal horoscope, right? So that'll be the karmic silhouette, the daily messages, making friends with the Deacons, which is very tied to that karmic silhouette. That this is the process by which we locate your birth card, locate the period of time that we're in. We use the system of Deacons, which are the 10-degree periods of time on the wheel of the year, right? And so we'll be discussing that tonight as well. And the Spotlight deck, which is a very interesting deck artistically. I have not read yet. I've never read the deck, although I've had it for a while. I've studied its artwork as a fan of the artist, and as kind of a meditative sort of intellectual process of trying to find symbolism separate from the tarot vocabulary that I'm familiar with. And it's an interesting process, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of share it with the community and get, maybe to pull 2 or 3 cards and see what people think, what they mean, and then kind of have a discussion about that, because they're that different. They're very unique. So that said, Harshita, hello, thanks for joining. I appreciate you popping in on the stream. And there's a reason that I have these 2 decks out as well. These 2 specific decks. It's gonna help illustrate also the kind of why most people aren't aware of what I'm going to share tonight, because it really should just be common knowledge. So that said, as the stream is developing, and as people begin to roll in, Harshia, let's see, will my foundation clear by December 2022? Okay, that's an interesting question, very specific. I like that. Your foundation, I'm assuming, this is an assumption, so I want to kind of get clarity on your question. Is this an organization that you're attempting to create, and you're waiting for potentially some paperwork to go through, or funding, or something along those lines? Is that what we were asking? If so, let me know, and if not, please clarify so that I'm in the right place when I go through, and I'm going to shuffle in the meantime, and we'll go from there. Okay. Also, it wouldn't hurt if I were to know your birth card. If you're not familiar with that, you would simply locate your birthday on the outside of the wheel here. And then that would be able to tell me your birth card. Uju, how's it going? Yeah, I'm glad you popped back in. It's good to see you. I'm glad you popped back in. I'm developing the list right now, and so we'll make sure that you get on there and at the front. And Harshita as well, if you could just provide your month and day of birth, it'll let me locate your birth card, and we can do that from there. In the meantime, let me get the list going here. All right, so let's swap that then. Give me just a moment, sorry. Okay. And okay. All right, perfect. Okay, great. Oh, wow, yeah. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so we will, let's do this here. This is going to be... Okay, now you're... Okay, I just want to clarify, Harshita. Is that July 10th or October 7th? I know some people use different dating systems, and the standard that I'm used to is month, day, year. But I know that that's not the case in other parts of the world, and I don't want to assume and get the date wrong. So, are we talking about July 10th or October 7th? Now here, I'll pop up the wheel here. And so again, just to clarify, Harshita, I'm not sure if I'm reading this as July 10th or October 7th. That's a major difference, and I need to clarify that. So just based on the date system, is that July 10th or is that October 7th? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that. October 7 is the Three of Sword. Okay, so this card is very similar to your sun sign. Okay, and as far as your every astrological sign has a tarot card associated with it. Sorry, I'm typing at the same time. Has a tarot card associated with it based on that particular sign. And so Libra's sign is Justice. There's a little bit of dispute on the specific numbering of Justice and Strength. And they get swapped occasionally, but I'm following the standard where Justice is number 8. Okay. And so that's your major. And so let's pop those out real quick. The first is the Three of Sword, which is one of the most iconic images in the tarot. This is one of these cards that even people who don't have a familiarity with tarot per se know this card. It elicits some type of emotional response in anyone who looks at it, right? I mean, it just has that vibe. And just to make sure, let's just pop in again, October 7th. Located around the wheel here, and that puts us at the Three of Sword. Now, you're in Libra, but also, see, that's your sun sign, right? The sun sign is Libra, but each deacon has a planet associated with it that is unique to that deacon. So when somebody asks you your sign, you can certainly say Libra and you would be correct in that. However, you can add to that by saying that you're Saturn in Libra, and that would add the energy of Saturn to that circumstance, right? And now what we have is the Three of Sword, and the Three of Sword is there's several ways to interpret this card, and you know the first thing that people jump to, and rightfully so, you've got swords sticking into a heart, is this idea of like a betrayal, or there being like a willful act of injuring somebody emotionally, abuse, self-harm, like all these kinds of images. And fine, I get that, and that works. It's not a bad idea. So now, there's some other implications here, though. First of all, the sword, it represents the element of air, but it also represents, as far as the human experience, the mind. The body would be the pentacle, the spirit would be the wand, the heart would be the cup. The mind is the sword. Thought, mental activity. And so what this card refers to, in a lot of cases, is there being mental despair, and that mental despair is a product of outward influence causing mental harm, like and now some of that can even be self-imposed, with respect to wrong thinking, and some of it is not. It comes from the outside influence. But the fact that this is your birth card is a different circumstance, because we're not talking about a specific event occurring in your life. This is more of the energy overall at the time of your birth. And the idea here is that you are affected emotionally by your thoughts, as a general quirk, as a general energy. Now that's positive and negative, because what this allows you to do when you formulate an idea, you're able to attach that emotionally, and that allows you to turn it into a drive, to actually manifest it, move it into the world. But there's also a very strong risk that can lead to all kinds of things, like emotional distress or an anxiety. It can lead to an over exaggerated sense of responsibility, and these kinds of things. So the warning / lesson here is that having the ability to connect the mind and the heart, when regulated well through understanding and through self-work, is very powerful. It gives your mind access to things that only your heart can typically experience, and it gives your heart access to things your mind usually are reserved for and the heart ignores, right? And so that's a good state to be in, making good decisions, acting on behalf of yourself in a positive way. And the negative side of that is that you fall into the trap of not taking care of yourself, and of sort of being through overthinking and through allowing influence to take agency over your thought can really be damaging. So look for both of those. Moving forward, as far as the next period of time, we're in this period of the Nine of Pentacles, which is the rest, the lack of anxiety, the lack of imposition that comes from doing that work. And now the Hermit is a great opportunity for that to happen. It's a time where it's conducive to be introspective and to allow that magic lantern to shine light on the truth. Because normally we're drowned out by the world and the din of our experience, where we miss the truth because it's sort of mixed in with everything else. We can see everything, and so it's hard to discern the truth from the lies. Where, as in the darkness and that particular lamp, it only shines on the truth. And so in darkness, we can actually see that. It's not distracted. So your message for this period of time until about the 12th is the idea of doing the internal work to better develop this gift you've been given of the ability to communicate your heart and mind together. And the benefit of that will be the reward of the lack of anxiety, of that sort of like the comfort that comes with that truth. Now, the opposite, if you don't do the work and you allow yourself to succumb to that, meaning that you believe the lies and you take to them to heart, is the anxiety that comes with the loss of the opportunity, the fact that you were doing the work and look forward to the result of that, but weren't able to complete it, and so you feel like a failure in that sense. And so that's the lesson. Okay. As far as the foundation is concerned, a lot of this is going to be this is going to come down to your why, because what this really refers to is who's the master. You can't serve both, right? So the idea here is that when you're in this process of unifying the heart and the mind, typically we walk around the world and we pick one or the other and we go at that. This gives you this chance to kind of inform your thoughts using both. But the question that answers the best is the question of why. Like, what's my motivation in this? Why am I doing it? And more specifically, when it's time to act, am I using my emotion as the source of that, or am I acting practically? I would say, with respect to your question, because again, I would like a little bit of clarification on what you mean as far as, will your foundation clear? It seems like, again, if this is the formation of an organization and there's some paperwork or there's some process that you're waiting for, or is there an unknown related to funding or something else like that where you have to get approval, then that's the direction I'll take the reading. If it's something else, then I would require some clarification on that. But as far as the message here, this message that I just gave you is related to the period of time up until about the 12th. And that's when we transition into a new period of time. And so it would be prudent then to get a new reading and to kind of see where we're moving forward when we move out of the 9 of Pentacles and into the 10. Okay? If there's any particular questions, details, or circumstances that are specific that you want any clarification on, there's a number of different readings. You'll see them down here on the, what's the best way to point to that? That's there, that, this is those. That are, the one card message is pretty advanced considering it's just one card. It's not kind of a yes or no sort of thing. It's pretty deep. The mind, body, soul, or past, present, future is a pretty good reading with respect to where a situation's coming from and going, but more appropriately, I would say, is like a what if type of thing, which would get pretty in depth on looking at the potential options that you could take, different paths, and what would be the outcome if you took one path or the other. And so it gives you a little bit of perspective on what direction would be more suitable towards your will, and what would be more suitable towards your higher will. I say, oh, okay. So, the High Priestess is a card, and it's funny, I'm going to speak about this card here in a little bit. The High Priestess is a card that represents intuition as opposed to knowledge. It's not even necessarily the heart as opposed to the mind, because intuition is a function of the mind. It is built in. It's just not something that we use to communicate. It's something that we use to observe the communication and then make decisions based on that observation. So the High Priestess is basically saying that your intuition is correct and that that's what you need to listen to. And so there's a feeling that you have about this circumstance already. And I would say that that is the correct answer. That you should ignore the kind of mental interpretation of what you think is going to happen, and go with your gut, and you kind of are leaning in that direction. And if you consider as well what we talked about here, and where you're coming from with this connection between the mind and the heart, and use this superpower. You have it, use it. And so what this is going to let you do is to say, not just in this particular circumstance, but moving forward as well, the work that I did, was it driven by a desire to succeed, or was it driven by a desire to be seen a certain way? Like how did I approach this? Again, your intuition tells you the answer. There's an important thing here too, with respect to the tarot, that I think it's important for anybody who's here tonight, or that visits other readers. Utilizing the tarot to answer a yes or no question is like drinking out of a fire hose, right? It's like lighting a cigarette with a blowtorch. The fact of the matter is that it's almost, and I don't mean this as an insult to anybody in the room, but it's almost demeaning to the work. Flip a coin. Or think about, like both sides of the circumstance, and say to yourself, how do I feel about the one side or the other side? And then when you get to the core of that, what that does is it lets us know our motivation in asking the question to begin with. And oftentimes when we uncover that motivation, we don't need an oracle to answer the question. If it's strictly a yes or no question, will XYZ happen? What I would rather say you should do is to add a word to that question. For instance, what can I do to make that happen? Or why didn't it happen? And so you can examine what was the particular behavior or the particular circumstance that was out of my control that prevented it from happening, so that you can be better prepared in the future. So by adding that little addition of a who, what, where, when, why, or how, changes not just the formulation of the question, but the nature of the answer, and the answer becomes much more useful, right? So I could theoretically, for the sake of the question, flip a coin and tell you, oh, well, yes, you're going to clear, or no, you're not. Have you learned anything? Or is it really now a guessing game of, oh, that random person on the internet told me yes, and I guess we'll find out by December. So rather, what we can do is to say, okay, let's take a step back, and let's reform the question to something like, what can I do to ensure that my foundation clears by December? Okay, and that's a much deeper question that's going to give you a very useful answer that can actually be actionable today. Like, you can take steps starting in the morning when you wake up that will move you toward that goal, as opposed to, well, he said yes or he said no, and kind of what does that mean? So I hope that made sense, right? As far as like, and that's for kind of everybody in the room, sort of how to approach the question when approaching an oracle. Like the tarot. It's the reality is that tarot works. It allows us access to information that is available to us if we let it. But if we don't, then we'll hear information, but it won't integrate. It won't matter. It won't alter our behavior. It won't change our perspective. It's just like it's almost like play, right? Which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that when it's appropriate. But also when you're speaking about things that matter, it's really good to kind of say, okay, how can we really get to the core of this thing so that I can benefit from it, I can grow from it, and hopefully learn and let it change my behavior to the degree that I'm becoming better in more authentic toward my true will, right? That is what I feel about that. Hello, Steph. How you doing? And so we have, and I hope that was insightful. And if, I'm certainly again available for any particular specific readings that are getting a little broader than what's in the scope of sort of like a free small reading on the channel here. I'm absolutely available for that. As well, all I would ask is if you do find any value in what I'm doing, consider liking the video and maybe leaving a comment. It makes a big difference. So let's go ahead and update the list here. Uju, you're next. And Mutsilu, let's put you on there. Nisha. Lots of yes or no questions, but we'll adjust them and we'll get to the core of stuff, right? Isn't that the point? Artie, how's it going? Okay, and we'll put one more name on the list here. Perfect. Okay. Or actually, Steph as well. If you're interested in a reading, Steph, I'll pop your name on. And then I'm going to close the list. Because I don't want to be in the position of feeling rushed. Okay. Lauren, hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. And so let me jump here. There we go. Great. All right, so next in the list here is Uju. And we're going to be looking at a couple of subjects tonight that we're going to be jumping back and forth between on these readings, like why the 22 majors. I think that's a really great subject that's gonna it's for some people it's gonna be an aha moment, and for some people it's gonna like split your brain open, and it's gonna completely this is gonna sound bold, but so be it. It's gonna completely alter the way that you look at the tarot forever, and there's no going back. It's actually a 30-second description of why there are 22 majors, but the information is so purely archetypally true that it is immediately integrated into your thinking and will alter the way that you use tarot forever. So if there's any readers in the room, or anybody who is a student of tarot like myself, that information, when this information came to me, it changed everything. So stick around for that. So Uju, let's roll back and take a look at your birthday. I don't know if we put that in here. Let me find it. June 2nd. Okay, let's just take a look here. So we're going to jump to the wheel, right? And what we're going to do is locate June 2nd, and that's going to tell us the deacon that rules that period of time. So June 2nd puts us in the period of time of the 9 of Swords, right? Now, when people ask you, what's your sign? In this particular case, if we look at that date, you'll see that that means Gemini, right? And so when somebody asks you, what's your sign? They say, oh, my sign's Gemini. But now there's another piece of information that we miss, and that's the ruling planet for that deacon. Every deacon has a planet that they carry with them. And in this particular circumstance, we're at the 9 of Swords. That is Mars in Gemini. So from now on, you can say Mars in Gemini. Oh, what's your sign? I'm Mars in Gemini, right? And now consider what that means. Mars is a very sort of active, masculine root chakra kind of energy attributed to Gemini, which is that flexibility to kind of flip sides when needed and to kind of have to hold two thoughts. It can also be a bit confusing because when you take that energy and you accelerate it, there can be almost a bipolar vibe that you have to be aware of, right? So let's pop your cards out here. And just to clarify here then, we're looking at the Nine of Sword, which is in the period of time between June 1st and June 10th. Okay, his birthday is June 2nd. Oh no, his birthday is February 19th. Okay, well, we'll look at that in a second then. But your birthday is June 2nd. So that is the Nine of Sword. Okay, so let's pop that out. Okay, and now this period of time that we're in is kind of one of these times where it's sort of good for a lot of people and bad for a lot of other people, because the period of time that we're in right now is related to whether or not you've done the work or not. If you didn't do the work, you don't get the reward, but it's more than just not getting the reward. You have the unfortunate reality of suffering, the knowledge that you could have had it, and so there's sort of like an added disappointment to that, like an extra anxiety. But the reward of doing the work is the rest of the lack of imposition, that you did what you were supposed to, and so this is the card in the middle here, this sort of blissful ecstasy moment of like enjoying your bird in your garden and you know, being all happy about that. Now, Uju, the Nine of Sword here refers to anxiety, worry. Each one of those swords means one of two things. It's either each one is an experience you go back to in your life. Remember, the swords are mental. These are not emotional scars. These are mental scars. Or these refer to past experiences within your family and our ancestral karma that you're having to face, and you're the next victim. Now, there are ways for you to work through that so you can break that cycle, whether it be your own personal demons or those of your family that we unfortunately through various means take on, whether psychologically or metaphysically. The fact that we're in the period of time of the Nine of Pentacles along with the Hermit means that you have an opportunity during this period to begin the process of breaking that cycle. So what I mean by that is the Hermit refers to the fact that there is no truth in the light. In the light, you see everything. So you're stuck in this place of having to discern between the truth and lies. And you know what? The liars are really good at it. And so it's hard. Virtually impossible for most people. I can't do it. I don't know about you. But the Hermit tells us, well, I have a magic lantern, and my superpower is I can shine this lantern, and it'll only shine light on the truth. Okay, so that's going to help. But the problem is that the limitation of this lamp is that it gets drowned out by the sun. Like, it's kind of useless in the sunlight. It only works in the dark. And when you're in the dark and you shine this lamp, suddenly all that's illuminated is the truth. And so you're not burdened by having to go through the process of what's real, what's not, and that thing. So the lesson here, Uju, you don't have to suffer this any longer. You don't have to perpetuate that. And when you feel this coming on is the time to actually go in and see yourself for what you are, which is when at your creation, you were created without all this. This is a product of your life, not of yourself. Yourself is protected from it. And the job is to let the swords go. And in the Hermit is the opportunity to do that. Now, I would say the method of going about that is different for everybody, and you know, you may want to consider what you feel would be the most effective, and potentially even consider some type of local spiritual conversation, somebody that you know locally that you can sit down with and that you're comfortable enough with to have that conversation and say, hey, listen, I have these feelings, and here's where I think they come from, and I spoke to this random guy on the internet who told me that I should go speak to somebody. Self-care is important, and self-care starts at the soul level. You have to want to feel good. You have to fight not feeling good. You have to believe that you deserve it, because you do. Now let's just take a quick scroll here. Are there any specific questions here? Coming next in my love life. Okay. Well, what's coming next? And then you have a person mentioned, so clearly you have somebody in mind, right? And this was a February 19th. Let's just take a quick look. Just do something really fast. Typically I charge for like specific questions, but so be it. Thank you, Miss King. I appreciate that. That just means that I succeeded. All right, so where was that chat? Where are you? Let's see. I lost it. Hang on now. Ooh, there you go. February 19th. Okay, February 19th. 8 of Cup. 8 of Cup. Okay. So, let's pop 8 of Cup out real fast. Okay. Now, the 8 of Cup is the card of... see all the cups in this foreground here, and then there's this red cloaked individual with a cane walking away. This is the idea of... it's funny... if this is the 8 of Cup and the next card is the 9, which is the Hermit, and that's not an accident. So this card is essentially the step being taken to go into the darkness to experience this, what you learn from the Hermit, right? But now, another thing that this represents with respect to love relationship type readings is this person is walking away from the cups. Your kind of question here is, what is the nature of that walking away? Because this is their birth card. This does not necessarily represent the love question you're asking. This represents their overall energy, like yours is the idea of this ancestral, the ancestral demons, the mental stuff. And then you have here this other one, which is this individual who has this compulsion to withdraw emotionally. And that's not always the great, depending upon your level of kind of neediness. If you're somebody who has low fuel and needs other people to fill that up, this is not the person for you, because they're kind of the type that withdraws. If you are the one who has the emotional energy to fuel the relationship, this person would be good, and you can potentially help them to become more comfortable and withdraw less. So this individual here has a propensity to withdraw, and whether or not they're good for you is going to really come down to you asking the question, how much do I need them to fill me up compared to how much I'm willing to fill them? And if the ratio is leaning more towards you're being more empty and needy, they're not the one. Okay? And that's... nothing's written but the past, and there are ways when using communication to really get to the heart of how somebody is acting and interacting, but it comes down to what is going to make us actually happy. Like this game that we play of winning is a fool's errand, pardon the pun. More appropriately, what we should do is say, okay, well, what's going to make me happy? Would you rather win or be happy? Would you rather win? What is winning? Winning is a standard that two people agree upon, and if you breach this point, then you win. If you're below that, you lose, and it's just between you two. It has no bearing on the universe. Winning is like it's a word we invented to drive the ego toward some goal. There's the other thing, which is fulfillment, contentment. being in a position to actually give yourself permission to be loved. And then when you do that, what you wind up doing is that you kind of cast light that draws attention, right? Like if you're in darkness and someone turns a light on, you're going to look at that light, and what you wind up doing is you draw attention of people who want that, which is you. And so suddenly your relationships move better. You are able to enroll people in your thinking because you're kind of in the same place. And I don't mean echo chamber. I mean that you work together to create new things, because there's that, you're kind of going with that, the flow of your true will, right? And that's a big deal. And then like real love can happen. Then you bump into some like serious stuff where it's not just attraction or lust in a costume of love, or you're thirsty but don't realize it, so you eat, right? It's the same idea. We want to make sure that we're looking for the right reason, and that we're barking up the right tree, so to speak, when it comes to love, or we're just wasting time, theirs and ours. So consider that, okay? All right, Uju, I hope that helps. If you find any value in that, again, all I ask is that you give the video a like and consider a comment. It makes a huge difference. Anybody who's in here is looking at me because they saw me on their feed, right? And that's because a robot put me there. And that robot reads comments. And so it really does make a big difference. So next here, Mitsilu, if you're still here, let me know. Say hey. And we will continue. And we will, we can locate your card as well pretty easily. If you don't know it, we can jump on the wheel. Or otherwise, just if you could put your month and day of birth. Oh, thanks, good, great. Put your month and day of birth in the chat, and I can locate it for you, or you can find it here. Now, just to clarify, I live in the United States, and the standard that I'm used to, just the way I was kind of taught as a child, for dates is month, day, year. Whereas I've noticed a lot of my visitors from overseas use day, month, year, and it's not always clear for me to determine that, right? So if you put in like a 10-4, that can be April 10th or October 4th, right? And so if you could put the month so that I know for sure, or find your birthday on the wheel here and then let me know what your birth card is, and then we'll continue from there. Schlock, how's it going? Good to see you. Thanks for popping back in. April 22nd, great. I'm doing great, actually. I'm doing very well. April 22nd, so we're going to just find April in the wheel here. It's in that red to orange area, and you're the 22nd, so you're sneaking into Taurus, right? Now you're in the 5 of Pentacles, and when people asked you in your life what's your sign, you've been telling them Taurus, and that's true, but now you get to tell them Mercury in Taurus. Okay, Mercury in Taurus. And now what we're going to do here is plug in, just to clarify and make sure that I got that correct, 5 of Pentacles, right? April 22nd. Yep. Okay, great. So it's the 5 okay. Okay, so if there's any... Okay, just very quickly, allow me to digress for a second. If there's any nerds in the room, I just had the strangest thing happen. So in order to make it easy for me to pop names up, I have a text file that I open, and it runs a quick script that throws the text up on the screen, and so I don't have to mess with my streaming software. Long story short, I plugged in the name, and I went to save, and I accidentally... Instead of hitting Shift P to add the capital P, I hit Control P and printed. Anyway, so I accidentally just printed my text document, and that was not expecting that, and that was a fun little occurrence. And so This is the 5 of print accident. Whoops, pentacle. All right, and so let me get that up. There we go. Okay, this card right here. Ari, how's it going? Here's the deal with this 5 of Pentacle. I have to kind of tread this light because this is like a super heavy subject. Let me see how I can broach this. I'm going to go 2 levels here, okay? The first one is pretty apparent in the image, right? Like you have this idea of these people are sort of, that's my birthday, brother, 1216 in the house, although I'm 20 years older than you, but I'm actually more than that. But that said, though, Sagittarius, sorry guys, we're the best. But that said, the idea here, they're injured. There's if you notice, they're walking through snow barefoot, so they're poor. It's like the worst of the worst of the worst, but they're showing up at a church because they know that they can go to that church for help, right? So there's this idea of a charity in a sense, but there's the church is just the institution. It's not the actual act of giving. This is the act of needing. Okay? Now, this is in your birth card, so this does not refer to like an event in your life right now where you're suddenly in need or poor or walking barefoot in the snow, right? It's overly dramatic on purpose. But it does refer to there being a drive toward necessity, whether that be that you have this drive toward using being needy as a way to get what you want, which is kind of common. I just realized I want to take that away and pop this back up, which is the card of the period. Give me a moment. Sorry. There you go. So it's a very effective device for some people to act needy, to like be, you know, or on the reverse side, that you're the one that is the provider. In this case, you would be the church, and it's really a calling towards social work. So it comes down to you understanding that there are people in the world that are, it's not their fault, they need help, and that equality in your mind and the inequality from the perspective of the world is apparent to you, right? So now, but let's extrapolate that, okay? That was the short lesson. That's the sort of simple version. Here's the really heavy, deep lesson of the 5 of Pentacle, and this is hardcore. There is this idea of that as above, so below, right? And the idea here is that everything happens there first and then is manifest in our world after that, right? It's the idea of that there is this higher realm, higher dimensional realm where things happen, and this is kind of like a holographic presentation of that. That's just one way to look at that. But now here's the point. There's us, the creation, and there's the universe, God, whatever word you use to describe that, which is the creator. The creator, the creature. These are separate things. The creator bestows, gives. The creature receives. It's all we do. We receive light, sound, thought, touch, smell, air, food. Everything we receive. We don't bestow, we receive. We don't create, we receive. Now, when we walk on a path toward truth, toward enlightenment, our life changes. We act different. We do things differently. Still a hippie. Hey, thanks for popping in. When we find ourselves in that place where we begin to notice the injustice, right? We begin to see these things. What happens is we are compulsed to be like God. We're compulsed to emulate the behavior of the creator. And so at a core level, what that means is we want to create. That's what God does. We receive, God gives. We want to give. The act of giving becomes a divine act and a spiritual act of growth. Now, let's talk about giving. Here's $1. That was easy. I gave you $1. Did an act of giving take place? It did. Did you change the life of the person you gave the $1 to? Not really. $3 to get you a cup of coffee, so that would be cool. However, what if you gave time? What if you gave money anonymously? All these are different levels of giving. Now, there's one level of giving that is according to some old school thinking, ancient Kabbalistic kind of thinking, and prior to that, is the idea of giving by receiving. When you receive, you're giving to the person who gave to you. And so that's a very interesting dynamic, right? And that's kind of heavy. The way you give is by receiving, and so what you're doing is satisfying the goal of your creation. You were created to receive, but at the same time, you're acting as God does by bestowing and giving. So it's the perfect act to give by receiving. An example of that is when a buddy of yours spends a lot of time doing something nice for you. Take it and let them see you enjoy it. Don't be shy and say thank you and open the present later. Open it up and tell them, oh, how, dude, you got the perfect color. I can't believe it fits great. Let them have it. Give by receiving. That's the lesson in the 5. There's people who are put in a position in this world of being in need so that the act of giving can exist. And that act of bestowal and reception becomes the nature of justice and truth. If you do that work, the reward is the 9 of Pentacles, which in this case is the rest that comes with that. Okay? And so that's the message of the 5 of Pentacles, and that's your message for this period of time. Is what you cannot do in this period of the Hermit is to say, okay, which one am I? Am I the one that's giving by receiving, or am I the one that's receiving in order to satisfy the other? And because we all play that role in one way or another, and this would be a good period of time for you to kind of look in and say, which one am I, and which one's most conducive. Because what happens is that when you're doing it right for the right reason, you will begin to receive things you never thought. You'll begin to be put in positions that you can grow that you never expected. Because there's no getting off the path, people. Anyone here that's found themselves on the path, strap in, because you can't get off. Once you get the karmic momentum behind you, try stopping that train, right? So what this does is it puts you in the position of balancing that between give and take, okay? So Jeannie, how's it going? Okay, everyone just hang on. I need to pause for a second. So Jeannie, man, I have notes for you, but here's the important thing that you need to understand. It's borderline harassing this person. They're not going to communicate with you, and that's not going to change. Here's my notes, okay? And again, I just want to clarify for Sajini here, and then we can move on, okay? They are unattainable, okay? Because what you think they are isn't real. There's this, their actual self is very different. You've drawn up a picture of who they are in your mind, and it's not who they are. Any connection that you have with this person, whether it's in the past or future, is purely superficial. It's transient. They don't even notice you. It's kind of like you're in a sea of people, like you're part of a crowd. It's almost like you're trying to meet a celebrity and they couldn't care less, like really. The idea here as well, they're in Scorpio and Venus, which means that they're very indifferent, they're very selfish, there's an inconsistency and kind of a false persona, and really ultimately the only thing that would come from a connection would be disappointment. And so my recommendation to you is to say, let them go. Let it go. Now, if a tarot reader told you that there's a past connection, that might be true. I would really hasten to trust strictly a card circumstance to determine past lives. That requires a little bit of actual work where you're talking and there's a semi-hypnotic situation, and somebody with training would do that. Past life with tarot is really irresponsible if the tarot reader doesn't know what they're doing. And so I would say, take that with a grain of salt. I would not use the tarot to do a past life reading, and I've been reading tarot for 40 years. I'm a doctor of metaphysics. I'm trained to teach tarot, I Ching, aromatherapy, homeopathy, naturopathy. Like so this. Trust me, there's certain subjects, not all, but certain that I'm an authority on, and I would not do a past life reading using tarot. So take from that what you will. But just to be clear, Sajini, I appreciate you joining the stream. This is the 6th time you've asked about this person. The answer is not going to change. So good, and you know that's empirical evidence matters, right? If they're blocking you, like what are you doing? You know, like move on. There's somebody out there that's going to fulfill you and make you happy, and they're going to let you be you, and they're going to want that. That's the person you want to be with, right? So, okay. Now we are at Nisha, I believe. Nisha, if you're still in the room, give me a hey. Where are we here? Yeah, Artie, you're going to be next on the list here. If Nisha is still in the room, please let me know. If not, then we'll move on. You did not annoy me. Listen, it's very common when approaching an oracle for something you want. Obviously, you want this, right? That you're looking for some glimmer of hope that you can get that, and so I will never judge someone for going, yeah, but really, can I have? Oh, but can yeah, but what if? Yeah, but can I? So don't worry. Like I wasn't annoyed. It was more of a it's kind of the idea that sometimes your tone of voice matters, right? And I think I was a little passive multiple times with you about this circumstance, and I needed to just kind of get into dad mode and be like, listen, just knock it off, right? And so that's kind of what happened there. So I wasn't really annoyed more than for your own sake and love and for your own fulfillment, just get this person out of your head, because it's you know, like you're wasting time. And so absolutely not, please. And so again, Nisha, if you're in the room, if not, then Ari, we're going to jump to you. And what I'll do, just in case people jump in and out, they'll hop on another stream and then hop back. So what I'll do, I'm going to put your name here, Nisha, after Artie. And if you happen to come back in, we'll deal with that. If not, then I'll jump to Arpita and then Steph. And then we'll go to today's topics, which there's a couple in particular that, again, there's one in particular that's kind of like split your head open, mind-blowing, life-changing. And that's the Y22 majors. That's so cool. And it's 5 minutes. You guys are going to just love it. And the Spotlight deck's going to be fun. The Surrealist Tarot. Here's just one card of this thing. Like, the artist did some stuff that I can't even begin to like. We're going to have fun with that, right? And so we'll get to that as well. And so, I'm sorry to hear that, Ari. Wow, that's painful. All right, this one's going to be a little weird, right? It's going to be a little on the downside, right? So just guys, just kind of strap in and be prepared. The word divorce was mentioned. I've been through it. I'm sure people here in the room that have also been through it, and we know how much that sucks. So, but that said, let's begin with your birthday. Let me see if you've already put it in the chat here. December 16th. Okay, awesome, right? So I know your birth card. It's mine. And let's go ahead and pop out 10. Yeah. All right. Let's put this here. Get rid of that 5. Okay, very good. All right, now. Now, Artie has been in the room before here, and we've done readings before as far as personal message. And so, what I'm going to do, rather than the personal message, obviously, since it's the nature of this question is very specific. We're just going to go that route real fast. Now, so let's, and it's, I reserve the right, so I'll do that. Okay, you're asking. Okay, you're asking the question of why right now, and now I just want to be clear that you want that answer. Like, that can be tough, but let's do this, man. So, I've been there too, and it's funny too. The why I thought it was happening when it happened is not the reason it happened. And I didn't know that until much later. And so I can appreciate kind of wanting to know why, but sometimes some things are left better unknown. You know what I mean? And that I'm going to leave that up to you. Here's what I'm going to guarantee you, Artie. I'm going to tell you what I see. And I take the work seriously, and so the integrity of the work is important to me, and I'm not going to stretch, I'm not going to sugarcoat, I'm not going to try to stuff it into the meaning. We're just going to go with that. Okay. Let me just swivel this for a second and get it out of my way. Oh boy, I'm already getting a pit in my stomach. Alright, here we go. Whew, man, what a subject. I also came from divorce, right? My father was married more times than fucking I have fingers on my left hand, so. But, it's never, even when it's good and right, it's painful, right? So. Well, I there's a couple people in front of you, Sajini, and so yeah, as far as the time here and what we have left, I would appreciate it, and I expect to be streaming again tomorrow. I'm doing at least once a day, and I'm trying to squeeze in two. Yeah, or if you'd like, just to kind of throw it out there, you could easily, if you'd like, book a reading, and we'll schedule a time tomorrow privately. We'll do a private reading either over Zoom or some other type of video conference that's appropriate. And if you're not able, we can at least do like a private YouTube, and I'll just pipe you in on the phone so that we can hear each other. So that option's available as well. All right. Otherwise, yeah, I would appreciate it, because it is kind of that's a little bigger question, and we want to the goal is to kind of keep the stream moving. And I suck at that. I'm long-winded, and I take the work seriously, and so if I see something I feel like I need to get across, I'll stay on a subject that really should have taken 2 cards, and okay, wow. All right, I'm gonna, wow. Already, okay. I'm gonna talk to you about your questions here, so don't worry. But I will say this, you're in a, because I've been there, so I'm speaking from experience. You're going through some stuff right now, which is a big deal, and the questions you're asking are important, but they're toxic. Now is not the time for you to ask, is he going to be happy without me? Why did he leave? Here's the deal. This thing happened. And it fucking hurts. And it never gets easier, and there's this empty that doesn't ever go away, and it's like even if you fall in love again, and there's always that happened, and there's a scar, there's a wound. So even if you move, the wound, right? So, but here's the deal: there is no healing. Healing is It's almost a lie. It's almost a misnomer. Rather, because what is healing? What you're trying to do when you heal is to take a thing that's damaged and make it what it used to be. And that's not possible, right? Even with something as basic as crumbling up a piece of paper and trying to make it flat again. I don't care how hard you press that paper with iron, it's not going to be flat again. There's you can't glue a vase back together and it be one piece. It's impossible. It's the law of entropy. It's like there's nothing you can do. However, what we can rather do than trying to take a thing that's damaged and make it what it used to be is we can take a breath, mourn the loss of the thing that you'll never get back because it happened, and then begin to let that go and allow something new to be created instead. So you're not turning it into what it used to be, you're letting it become something else. And that something else that it becomes is greater than it was before. It's better. So the questions that you're asking here are very psychologically damaging right now. Like, you don't want to answer these questions. Is he really happy after divorce? Of course he will be, and so will you. You just don't know when, right? It took me a while to kind of get back into the swing of allowing love in, and there was issues. It took me a while to kind of work through that before I was able to accept that, and then I wound up having some pretty rough relationships after that, and whatever the case, like we all do, some rebound nonsense and all that. So you have to you have to be very careful here not to put yourself in a position of hearing things that are just going to hurt you. So before I even pull a card about happy after the divorce, yes, he's going to be happy after the divorce, and so will you. There's going to be a period of time where it's difficult, and if you two stay apart, you're going to wind up moving on with other people eventually. I know you feel like you're going to die alone right now and you'll never love again and fuck the world, but you know what? That's healthy and normal, and you won't be feeling that in 6 months, in a year, whatever, right? So let's just throw that question out. I'm sorry, but let's just do that, okay? Now let's look a little higher here. You're sad. Why did he leave? Like, that we can address. Let's address that. And I just want to say again, I'm sorry. I know what you've been through. I'm sure there's people in this room who've experienced what you've experienced, and so they know. And there's no words, really. This is just a period of time that you're going to have to feel and get through, and you're going to come out the other end different and stronger. And it doesn't seem like that now, but I promise you that's how it works. Anyone else in the room that can agree with that? Because that's how it went down for me. It's how it went down for my ex-wife, which we talk now. We have children, and we're cordial and we're friendly, and I respect her. So let's take a look, though. That's the one. Okay, what we have here is the Ace of Swords. Right. What this refers to is the element of air. There's a few things that air represents. Air represents intellect and the mind. It represents action, like willful action, like taking action. But the idea here is that it is mental, not physical, not emotional, not spiritual. The why, in his case. Hang on, I need to take an ibuprofen. I'm having a little bit of stress headache, like physical stress headache. The idea here is the why is a mental activity, meaning that he had made a decision practically, mentally, that this was best. What I mean is that this is not an act of passion, which would be an affair. This was not an act of gain. which would be the pentacle. This is not an act of the heart where there is an anger issue, or fell out of love or in love with somebody else. What this refers to, in a sense, is indifference. It's not even like there's he fell out of love. It was almost like it kind of wasn't there to begin with. I know that may sound painful to hear, but unfortunately, what we're talking about here is that it seemed like where you were and where he was were different, and that when you don't know somebody's motivation, sometimes you're thinking they're coming from a different place, and so this could be a very shocking experience. But what actually occurred here is basically, somebody said something to me once, and it makes a lot of sense, and I'm going to use it here to describe this. That people are capable of faking an entire marriage. Like, people can fake like ridiculous things for specific gain, whether it's to satisfy some sick part of their ego, or maybe some kind of trauma that left a hole in their lives that they fill with weird ways of coping, and that includes dominating or playing with people's emotions or minds, or whatever the case, like narcissistic kind of behaviors, or and these types of things exist. And it's very possible that your connection with this person, as real as it was during those times that you were intimate and you felt that love, there's no guarantee that the foundation of the relationship included that. It could have easily just been very trite to this person, and so it's very easy for them to leave because they were indifferent to begin with. And so, meaning that you were in a much different place than them. You were in a place of love, and they were in a different place. They were in like a place of like, it was practically useful, or this would be an example of where there was an arranged marriage and there just wasn't any love to begin with, and so they weren't committed emotionally. Or there's an example of where it was convenient for some reason. One great one that pops up a lot in my readings with people in this type of circumstance is where the relationship kind of formed out of habit. Like, they knew each other, were close, they fell in love and kind of dated, and then they just kind of became married, thinking, well, that's what we should do, we've been together this long, when they really didn't fulfill each other. But either way, this refers to emotional indifference. That's why he left. So okay, well, to Lauren, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. You can email, text that phone number with how to reach you, like what's the best way to reach you, and we'll go from there. And as far as booking the reading, we can discuss that. Once you send me the information, we can discuss when is appropriate for you, and I'll take a look at what's going on. Tomorrow is just a little weird. Tomorrow night, I'm on my crazy busy most of the day tomorrow. Wednesday, I'm pretty open. Thursday, I'm open, and so on. So we can talk about that. So yeah. But Artie, does he love someone else? I as far as the why and the motivation between you two not being together, it was not motivated by another. This is not him seeing something better and leaving, right? So that's the key here. Yeah, and what I would say is that we can certainly in the future revisit this circumstance as time continues to pass, and look at it from different perspectives, because the goal here would be for you to, when you are ready, do not rush the process, but for you to begin the healing. And what I mean by that is to move forward, to let go, because it's good for you, okay? So Yeah, no, so Jeannie, again, the list is kind of it's getting late. I'm going to be leaving on the stream here in a little bit, and there's a couple people in front of you, Nisha, Arpita, and Steph. And so if we could save it for the next stream, that would be great. Because we covered your question again this time, and so it would be, I think, unfair for me to let's just keep it equal here. But so you're so welcome, Artie. And again, all I ever ask of anybody who comes in my stream that finds any value in what I'm doing, please like the video and consider a comment. Even a couple of words can make a big difference. Thank you, Sajini. I appreciate that. It really means a lot. And so anyone who would, really, it makes a big difference. It really does. Okay, so let's just update this. And I need to ask. There we go. I need to ask for about 5 minutes to kind of clear my mind a little bit. It's been a very heavy day today. I streamed for a couple hours, did a bunch of readings, put them up on YouTube, and now I'm streaming again. And I need to just sort of shake off some energy real fast. I need about 5 minutes to do that. And just sort of ground out, and I'll be right back. Next on the list is Nisha. Nisha, if you're still here, just say hey. If you're not, Arpita, you're next. If you're here, please say hey. Steph, same thing. Otherwise, we will reset the list and go over a couple things, and then we'll go from there. So I will be back in a couple minutes. And I appreciate everyone popping in on the stream today. I'll be right back. Hey, Nisha, I'll be right back in about 5 minutes. You're next on the list, okay? And then Arpita and Steph, okay? And I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Alrighty, we're back. So, Nisha, hello. Okay, great. So let's take a look here. I don't remember if we located your birth card yet. So let's just scroll through and let's see. Maybe not. Okay, Nisha, if you could provide your birth card or your birthday, the month and day of your birth, that'll allow me to continue with your reading. That same thing for Arpita and Steph. If you're still in the room, let me know. And I would simply need the month and day, and I can locate your birth card for you, and then we can move forward from there. Okay. Also, if you'd like to locate it yourself, just find your birthday on the wheel here, and we'll go from there. May 11th. Okay, great. So that's the 7 of Pentacle. Okay. And again, this card does not change throughout your life. This card is not an arbitrarily chosen card. It's kind of like your sun sign. Okay. It's so that's the 7 of Pentacle. And this is also not just the energy of Taurus. This is the energy of Saturn in Taurus, which is a slightly more subtle interpretation than strictly your normal sun sign interpretation, right? So it's the idea of combining the planet and sign correspondence, right? So, but that said, let's go ahead and get that up, and then we will continue. Let me just get that finished here. Okay. All right. So, okay. What this card refers to typically is the idea of underutilization. This person is working below their capabilities. They're capable of much, much more, and yet for whatever reason or circumstance, they are in a position of being in a field that they're not satisfied or happy in. Right? That's why they have this kind of bored look, leaning on the stick. They're clearly not even doing their job here, right? Like they've got one pentacle off the bush, and they're leaning bored. Why? Because they're clearly working below their capability. Like imagine a researcher from the particle accelerator CERN being forced to teach second grade math. Right? He would pull his hair out, like. And be totally bored with it right away. And it would be, to say underutilized is an understatement. It's like a master chef working in a fast food restaurant, right? And so that's the idea here. Now, the fact that it's showing up in your birth card means that the energy here is that you are not satisfied when you're not able to utilize your full potential, right? Like if you are in a group situation and you feel like you can contribute to the product, to the conversation, to the thing that's being discussed, but you're not given that opportunity, that bothers you, right? You feel like you could participate in the process and make something better, but you're not being utilized to your full potential, and you're not okay with that. And there's a drive for you to at least during this period of time, up until about the 12th of this month, right? So in about a week. During this period of time, there's a drive for you to... you're next, Arpita. For you to look inside and to say to yourself, is that what I'm doing right now? Like, what is the factor that creates this cycle of behavior, of kind of being afraid to step into what you know you're capable of, rather than taking the lower road, which is easy but is totally below your capability. Now, the period of time that we're in right now in the Hermit is a very conducive time for you to do that work. This is a good time for you to look inward and go, hey, wait a minute. What is the thing I'm afraid of? What is it that I am not doing that I should be, so that I can be moving forward in my life instead of kind of feeling stuck in this rut? Being underappreciated really bothers you, and you should try as best as you can to let that be a motivating factor for you to not find yourself depressed in this state where you're not acting anymore, resting on the thing here, but rather are looking forward to, how do I become utilized? And if that means that I go on my own, even better, right? Instead of staying in a situation where other people aren't going to appreciate you, you can go on your own, do it for yourself, and then grow, right? And the reward of that would be the lack of anxiety, and the punishment of not doing that is the loss of opportunity. Every time you don't act on your own behalf and stay underutilized, something that you could have created that would help you grow and succeed doesn't happen, and that's a loss of an opportunity, right? So you want to make sure that you can keep that energy going in your favor. Now, with respect to your particular question about cigar, whether they love you, yes or no. Now let's look at that. Unless they're super shy, if they loved you, you'd probably know, right? They would make it known. Like, I don't know about you or anybody else in the room, but if I have fallen in love with somebody, and I don't mean an idle crush, but like I love this person, I'm going to do my best to make that known to them, right? Whether I tell them, ask them if they share the same feeling, do things for them that, to potentially facilitate a relationship. So I would say first, and I'll flip a card real quick and give you my interpretation of that. But what I would say when it comes to love like this is that you can kind of gauge how they feel based on how they act and react to you, and kind of think about how do you act when you love somebody, right? So, but let's see. Let me pop the desk camera back up here and get rid of the cards. Okay. What we're referring to is Mars in Pisces. Okay. Perfected success is a good word here, because what this refers to, the tens specifically, the tens refer to the combination of the basic elements, the three basic elements, and the seven essences of all physical reality. The seven planets are a good example of that, right? So those together make and complete the 10. And in this particular circumstance, that is manifested through the heart, the cup, love, connections, emotion, right? So this is a very good sign with respect to their general feeling about you is positive. And is there's opportunity for the cups to be filled. Mars in Pisces also refers to there being kind of like an aggressiveness, almost like a you have to take an active role, right? Flirt more is what I mean, so that it gives them something to react to. And if you get flirted with, play back, right? Make sure that you give play so that they feel like that what they're doing is working. And so there has to be that kind of back and forth for that to be successful. Mars in Pisces also refers... Pisces is an emotional card, but it's also specifically empathic emotion, right? So it's the idea of projecting your feelings into somebody else in the hope that they will share that, and taking feelings from someone else and experiencing that personally. And if you can both do that at the same time, by there being a level of honesty with each other about who they are to you, then that's a good thing. And so I would say that the lesson here is that there is an opportunity for there to be emotional connection there, but it requires there to be participation, okay? And in that is opportunity, because one of the things that comes through that win, lose, or draw is you get a closer, more accurate perspective of yourself. And, you know, no bad ever came from that, right? And so that is definitely what I would say with respect to that. Okay, Arpita, I'll scroll back, but if you can just put up your birthday, your month and day, or your card if we already looked it up, and we can go from there. And Steph, if you're still in the room, please let me know. You are next after Arpita. Okay, October 15th. Okay. Nisha, thank you. And again, all I would ask anybody, if you find any value in what I'm doing here, please like the video and consider a comment. Something as basic as thank you for the reading, or something simple like that. Like, it makes a huge difference in letting Google know, all right, this channel is worth watching, okay? So, October 15th, let's take a look. Okay, October 15, 4 of Sword. Jupiter in Libra. Jupiter in Libra. 4 of Sword. Now, let's talk about that. Let me just type this in real quick. 4 of Sword. Okay. Now. Okay. Let me get rid of that camera so it doesn't distract us. Okay, very good. The 4 of Sword here, it represents ancestral knowledge. Each one of these swords here is a gift from your family. Like, for instance, there's several people in my family that are musicians. Some of them are actually famous, or were in their time, a long time ago. And there's several people, myself and some cousins that are in my generation that caught that gift, right? We have a very strong musical ear. We play instruments, we sing, and music is an important part of our lives. And that came from, that talent came, well, thank you so much, AJ. I really appreciate that. That's a, you made me smile. Wow. And so, you know, we all have these talents that we get from our families, right? You know, I have a penchant for cooking that I kind of acquired from my grandmother, a little Italian woman, and so on. But each one of these swords is that. And if you'll notice, this person is there, and that what they're doing, they're lying there in reverence of their past ancestors. And so this is an idea of honoring the past, and also obtaining the gift of that past, right? Not everyone gets it. Not everybody gets the gift of their ancestors, but you do. And more importantly, it's your job to pass that along at the same time, right? So what we're looking at here is the energy of there being a strong familial bond that you share. Now, within the 9 of Pentacles, this is a period of time that is the idea of the rest that comes from the work. Meaning, if you are able to withdraw and look inside and access that familial ancestral power, Four of Swords is not a negative card. No, it's very powerful. Each one of these swords up on the wall are past family members, for lack of a better term, superpower that you have access to. And the way that you get access to that power is what this person is doing. They've gone to this cemetery. They're laying there in a meditative state, honoring their past members. And the sword that's lying flat there is this idea of the sword that you get to grab and walk out with because you've done this honoring, right? Basically, it's recognizing what you get from your ancestral knowledge. This is a positive card in most cases. In the esoteric tradition, the card represents peace through truce. It's the idea of putting down the swords, and so that the fighting stops, so that everybody can sort of reevaluate what's best for everyone. It's a slightly different interpretation in that case. But I don't feel that here. In this case, I feel that this is access to ancestral knowledge through you recognizing that exists, and by providing the appropriate respect to your ancestors, and through that work, you will access that. Now, this time is conducive to that as well. So the Hermit is a period of withdrawing, and in that withdrawing, the ability to see that truth. And you can't in the light, only in darkness. And the reward of that is literally ecstasy, right? This blissful moment of knowing who you are, where you come from, and what your role is in that, which is to continue this familial power. Okay. And what I would say is that there is karmic work that can be done, both through someone like myself or an advisor that has a connection to those types of energies, or on your own. It's on your own anyway, but it doesn't hurt to have some guidance before you step on the path, so you kind of know what to expect and can get more out of the experience. But you would be doing the work by yourself ultimately. If you were interested in something like that, the Mind, Body, and Soul or the Astrology House those are both very good readings for making that determination. Okay, and so you can text that number, or you can give me a call or a voicemail, or you can give me an email if you would like to do that as well. Okay, so Steph, if you're in the room, you are next and last. It's been a long stream. I've done 3 hours already plus this, so it's almost 5 hours of streaming, and my brain's gonna stop working soon. So I have to say goodnight. But Steph, if you're still here, you're next. If not, then I'm gonna sign off here. And to anybody else that I didn't get to tonight for whatever reason, either A, please join me in my next stream, which will be tomorrow. I stream 7 days a week typically. Or B, because I am about to sign off, if you could just put your month and day in the comment, I will reply to your comment with your reading. And I mean a real one. Like, if you go back to some prior videos, you'll see like a paragraph that I responded to. So I do that. I honor it. In the comment, just put your month and day of birth. I will respond to it within 24 hours with your reading. Okay, so thank you to everybody who joined the stream tonight. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot to everyone who's jumped in here and joined us. Otherwise, thank you so much. And if anyone has any other particular needs or specific questions, I do answer my text messages and voicemails, or you can send me an email and we can go from there. Okay? So thank you so much for everyone who joined me tonight, and we'll see you next time.